What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be doing a solo CM. Now for this one, I've downgraded from my traditional max gear to a more obtainable set of gear. Now don't get me wrong, there's still some pretty tough stuff to obtain, like Confliction Gauntlets, Avernic Treads, an Avernic Defender from Theater of Blood, things of that nature. But in terms of rarity, everything I have on me certainly is not as rare as, say, having Torva or a Twisted Bow or anything like that. So yeah, we've downgraded our gear. We do have a Bofa set up for range. For melee, we're going to be using the Fang, and we even took the liberties of having like a mismatched melee set of armor. We have Oath Plate legs, Bandos chest plate, and the good old Nada's Knot face guard. As for mage, we have Arums, which, you know, Barrow's pretty old. I do have Moon's gear as well, but I just currently don't have them on this account. And we do have a Sanguinesti staff, which recently received a buff, so I'm curious to see how that's going to do. That's probably going to do quite well on Ulm. And while we do have the Bofa setup, we're going to be using the Dragon Hunter crossbow at Ulm as well. And our melee weapon is going to be a lance, aside from the Fang that we're going to get through the rooms. So let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and pot up here. And I guess throughout this run, I'm going to do my best to kind of do a bit of a walkthrough, explain my thought process as I go from room to room here. Because the rooms itself, they're pretty self-explanatory, but understanding what's coming next and transitioning from room to room in a timely manner, that is what's going to save you the most time. Let's go ahead and summon our Thrall. We are on the Arceus spellbook. And of course, first hammer is always guaranteed. Unfortunately, actually, did that second hammer land? I don't think it did. We're going to be using the Fang here, which is 5 ticks, so when you do finally get your hands on a sight, this method I'm doing is also going to work not just as well, but better, actually. But I do think the Fang is the next best thing. I think if you really want to get into the calculator, it varies based on whether you hit just one hammer or 2 hammers. If you have your hands on an Elder Maw, which, you know, by definition is a mega rare as it shares the same drop table as the Twisted Bow, it can be useful for Tecton, but I think Fang is the next best thing usually. So I suppose let's go over our ring choices here a little bit. Naturally, we have a melee ring. I feel like for most pieces of content in the game, you're always going to camp a melee ring. Alternatively, you could also just camp the Lightbearer if you feel like you need that extra inventory space for something else. But a melee ring, especially an Ultor ring no less, is very valuable. Heck, even if you don't have the Ultor just yet and you have the Berserker ring, that is very noticeable of a difference as well to bring. But again, as I stated, if you don't feel comfortable with the ring switch, just camp the Lightbearer as well so that you have more specs available. That's going to be particularly useful at Ulm as well. Okay, unfortunately, we're hitting a bunch of zeros here towards this tail end of the Tecton. Hopefully, we get some big hits here to make up for it. And as soon as Tecton goes down, which hopefully should be right here. Nope, one more hit before it hits the anvil, please. Thank you, thank you. We're going to be picking up the Overload for sure. We're going to sip the Revet and then actually drop it, and we'll take the Enhance with us and sip that. I think in general the Enhance is more value. Anyways, we're going to swap into our gear here and make sure to aggro the crabs. We're actually a bit slow here, but that's okay. I was a little bit distracted. But we're going to first do the range crab here. We want 3 crabs aggroed on us, and then we want to smash 2 crabs into place here on these stun mark tiles. And then make sure to change them back to mage for this first crystal, the yellow crystal. And then we're going to go ahead and move down here for the empty, nothing black crystal. And then lastly, we'll get the sign crystal on the other side. Now, full disclaimer here, I don't typically run CMs with this setup, obviously, so different gear in my inventory, different number of switches as well. It's going to throw me off a good bit, but we'll try to we'll try to do our best to adjust to that. All right, so crab room done, nice and easy. We did waste a little bit extra time because we were just slow to transition over to that room. We're going to go ahead and hit the stamina pool here just in case. Probably don't really need it, but may as well. It's right there. We're not in a rush. And then we're also going to be scavenging. So I do want to overload right now. Go ahead and drop the overload and enhance over there to make room. In fact, we'll probably drop the stamina as well. We're going to want planks, obviously, and we're going to want juice and mushrooms. Don't have to worry about the Sicily. Now, this is going to vary for everybody, but personally, I want 13 juice and 8 mushrooms. So, do want a little bit more juice right now. Juice for brews, mushrooms for restores. And since we picked up that enhance, we don't have to worry about Sicily to make another enhance. Okay, let's go ahead and build the storage. We'll put the secondaries in shared, and then we can deposit everything else in the private. Now to go back, on the way back, we're going to pick up the axe here, begin chopping the sapling, but also making our way back to where we previously dropped our potions. Now, I actually messed up here, but a little trick you can do is, as soon as you see a woodcutting EXP drop, you're actually free to do whatever you need to do or want to do in between for about 3 ticks until the next chopping, which is every 4 ticks. So right there, I was able to pick up my potions without missing out on chopping the trees. So we're just going to get a full 28 kindling here in deposit. And then we're going to try to get another 28 as well. Unfortunately, that one just broke right away. So we're still in our melee gear here, and we're actually going to equip the burning claws as soon as we can when we withdraw our items. So 28 kindling, just a couple of more chops here. We're just maximizing the points here. Well, not exactly maximizing. We're kind of just squeezing out as many points as we can without like really delaying how slow this ice demon could be. So right here, after 2 batches of 28, we're just going to chop as much as we can while giving us ample time to access the storage unit again. So right now feels good. We only got 6 kindling, unfortunately, but in the name of just being comfortable, let's go ahead and move our potions towards the bottom so that when we withdraw all here, everything is exactly as it should. Now, actually, we don't need a lot of things here. We can go ahead and bank most things, including our mage gear. Except we do want our thralls, right? So, Burning Claws equipped, pray melee, or pray range, sorry, but use your melee gear. Burning Claw specs. Surge Potion is very handy, but you might not choose to bring it if you're kind of concerned about inventory space in the beginning. Maybe you want a Prayer Potion in case you're a little bit slower. And we're just going to claw scratch the rest of the way here, which is not ideal. You could bring an Emberlight as well, or also if you do have your mage gear still out, you could possibly just use Mark of Darkness and Dark Demon Bane. We messed up there. That's okay. You can see that we're not going to play perfect here, but it's perfectly okay. We're going to get through the rooms just fine. So I forgot to mention, but in our pre-pot, we did pre-pot an anti-poison of some kind. So we're going to be good to go for shamans because it doesn't take that long to get to the shaman room and get through it. Our Bofa is on accurate for some reason, so let's go ahead and change that back to rapid. And then we're going to hug the walls here, so these shamans don't jump. But yeah, you know, not having a T-bow, some people may think that you're unable to do solo CMs without a T-bow, but that's not the case. I've done hundreds, 1,000 even, solo CMs with Bofa, and it is very good, especially with all the changes these days. It is more than doable. It's just fine. Our overload ran out, so let's go ahead and re-overload. And you can see my prayer here is actually a bit slow because, or a bit low because we were a bit slow, and also we just weren't very careful with our prayer at all. So if you're kind of unsure about that, again, you can bring your own prayer potion in or pick up that Revit. So we're actually completely out here. So perfect example of us not being careful at all. But one more hit there and we get the job done. Fun fact, if you sip the enhance, it does instantly give you 1 prayer back. So that could come in handy. We're going to want Buchus. We're only going to be planting Buchus. We're going to be making brews and restores. So let's get both patches down. Honestly, you really only need the one, but in case you get unlucky and that first patch breaks, you don't have to wait because the second one is planted as well. So we're going to put away our gear here to make room. Take our spade back out, 13 juice and 8 mushrooms, as I mentioned earlier. Inventory full of vials, exactly 21 for us. Those files are now filled. We're going to put 10 away for now, just so we have room for Buchu. We're going to go ahead and make the revitalizations first. As soon as we have 8 Buchu, I'm going to start cleaning, making our way to the chest, make our revits here. There we go, 8 revits away. Those previous 10 vials we put away, we take back out. Now we have 13 inventory space for 13 Buchus for 13 brews. You can see that herb patch actually broke, but right away we transition over to the second one. And as soon as our inventory fills up here, we can start running to the next room while we clean the Buchus and make our brews. Should be able to make like 6 or 7 of these before we hit this passage. There we go. And then click on the chest and continue making these brews and just finish it up here. We'll go ahead and put all these brews away and then take all our gear back out. My inventory is actually messed up. This is just a mistake on my end from depositing stuff manually. What you want to do here is actually try to just keep things as they are and only use withdraw all and deposit all. But we're going to go ahead and fix the situation here. You can see how time costly this is though. Okay, so a lot of the stuff at the bottom we don't need. And then we're going to take our burning claws here, rune pouch. We're going to want the overload and hands back out. About 1 revit, 2 brews, that should do the trick. But again, I just want to stress, you can see how much time that cost me there by messing up my storage. The time is pretty free these days, but back then, and if you want to be efficient with your time now, inventory management and storage management is actually incredibly important. So based on the gear we just had on, we're going to range first just because we already had it equipped. And then we're going to try and follow this green ranged Vanguard around. I neglected to bring my defender. So once again, you can see that this raid is by no means going perfectly. We're making a ton of mistakes in all honesty, but that's okay. We're still progressing pretty nicely. Let's go ahead and summon our Thrall as well. We forgot to do that. Utilize the corner safe spot here. When you're in stronger gear, it's important to just be very patient here. Sometimes you're going to hit a ton and you're going to not be able to hit sometimes. You just kind of have to wait. Let's go ahead and use our Burning Claw specs. Again, no defender equipped right now for our Fang. Not sure what our max hit is. It'd be good information to know with your gear, what your mage and melee max hits are in particular. So the range Vanguard is the only Vanguard in which you can hide under it. You cannot do this method for the melee or the mage. So do keep that in mind. And then we'll work on the Mage Vanguard here. Max hit of 51. Alright, we're going to be free to just DPS down everything now. We barely used any food, but we are going to have to dip into it now. Just a little bit. And you don't have to do this right now, but you could preemptively drop your Overload and Enhance so that you re-up on a brand new one off of the Vanguards. You can also get a brand new set from Vespula. Whenever you're soloing CM, you have plenty of opportunities to get a fresh new Overload and Enhance. Okay, just the melee Vanguard left. And unfortunately, it digs. Always a point of frustration when it's just one hit away and then it digs. But there we go. Let's go ahead and pick up all the potions. We're really just after the brews. And restores, and of course the Overload and Enhance. So with all the stuff we prepped, we're actually very comfortable to just drop this brew in the name of having the inventory space so that we can start picking up grubs from the chest right away. Also, I very much could have just equipped my Book of the Dead and not had to have done that, but again, I'm very comfortable with the brews I have, so this is not an issue at all. What we are going to do here is, firstly, as soon as we open this chest, we're going to equip our melee gear, just so our melee gear is at the top. And to fix our previous mistake, let's make sure we have our defender. And then we're going to equip our... Let's put away our potions as well to make room. We're going to equip our range gear because that's what we want. And then our melee gear is at the top. We can then put our mage gear away. We're going to keep the Sang Staff and Book of the Dead though. And then we can continue thieving. Again, going back to the right before Vanguards, a lot of this is just inventory and storage management. And I am doing this a little bit slow right now because, as I said, I'm not used to my setup here. This is just a, for the purpose of the content and a walkthrough, I'm downgrading my gear, but I haven't done an actual raid in this gear in the longest time. Anyways, now that we have plenty of inventory space and we have 30 plus grubs in the trough, we can now take out everything that we're going to need, like the salve and pickaxe. We'll take the stamina and extended, or the extended stamina and the surge out, and then we want to make sure we have overload, enhance, and mostly restores here, and like maybe one or two brews for emergency sake. We're going to sip the stamina here, and then as we run through, we're going to want to make sure our quick prayers are redemption and rigor. And then alternatively, you don't have to stamina, you could probably just hit the energy well here, no big deal. Make sure to pray against these scavs, they do hurt. And then we're going to be working on Vespula. And we're doing the redemption method here, so that's why we want mostly restores. With a Bofa, this is a bit slow, but it's still doable. Your best option is Max Mage with the Tumican Shadow, and then the Twisted Bow is the next best thing, but those are mega rares, A lot more obtainable to have a Bofa set than either of those two. If you didn't prep too many restores, well, first of all, perhaps consider prepping more restores. Secondly, you can also just rely on your enhanced timer, your prayer enhanced timer as well to regenerate that one prayer. Because you really only need one prayer. Unfortunately, our overload expires here, which is not a great time, but we're just going to be patient on this outside tile here. And then once that's done, we continue on. We're going to use this one revit dose, and then from here we're going to rely on the enhance if we need to. But looks like we're good to go. Alright, we're going to be picking up these potions. Again, there's the overload and enhance I mentioned, so really it's up to you when you want to pick those up. We're going to start healing up as we run to the next room, which is going to be Tightrope room. And we're not doing anything special, we're just going to be doing Tightrope room as intended. Now we're going to access the shared storage here. We can definitely put away some stuff. Take some more brews out. And we'll work on the majors first. Especially with a 4-tick weapon, nothing fancy, you can just tank, stand here, tank, and, you know, make sure you pray and hit them back. With a 5-tick weapon, it is worth it to step out of range, just so you trade the hits more equally. But again, with a 4-tick weapon like a Bofa, no concerns there, just make sure you don't die. Now the majors are actually the humble ones. These rangers are going to hurt quite a bit. Exhibit A. What we are going to do here is we're going to transition into our melee armor here just to be a little bit more tanky. Right there we actually just got chance because we got hit while we were 32 health. These things can hit like over 40. And if you're ever really that low, like below 43 health, which I believe is the max hit, as long as you click on your food before the arrow lands on your character, you're able to heal in time. So we grab the Keystone Crystal. Let's move on. And as we move on here, we're going to swap in our melee gear and equip our pickaxe and defender so we have one extra inventory space. And then with that extra inventory space, we're actually going to just take one brew, and we're going to be getting 2 brews from Vespula, so I'm leaving some space there intentionally. Now, whenever I do these videos where I purposely downgrade my gear, I tend to forget my salve amulet for mystics, because in a max setup for solos, you typically don't bring a salve. But I did remember it this time, so yeah, we'll have a salve amulet, and we're going to be arranging with the Bofa when we get there. But first, we got to get through Guardian's Room, and then Vasa. Not much to this room. Just make sure you got all your melee gear on, your strength bonuses. This does scale with your strength level and mining level, so mining levels are important. And the tier of your pickaxe. So obviously if you have a dragon one, make sure to bring it in. Now the crystal pickaxe doesn't do any better than the dragon pickaxe. The only plus to having a crystal pickaxe is that it's lighter weight, but these days stamina is a non-issue anymore, so like purely for the flex, right? If you want to bring a crystal or a 3rd age pickaxe or something. Now as we finish up Guardians here, we're going to be ready to swap into our range gear. Now speaking of making sure we have all our melee gear on, I was camping the light bearer that entire time. Our ult door was in our inventory. I should have noticed when we hit a 57 max hit. That seemed kind of low. Okay, so we're going to equip our Fang here, and then quickly swap into our range gear. We're going to be doing the Vasa teleport skip. We're trying to anyways, hopefully. Okay, we already messed up. We already messed up, but that's okay. When you do mess up, just make sure you heal up. Now, in my case, I took a little bit of a risk there because I noticed my overload was expiring. Now, this is not a very ideal situation because we had to re-overload. A couple of hits there that were, you know, without being overloaded. You can also use your Burning Claw specs here. I forgot to do that there. I'll go ahead and do that on the second Vasa teleport, or the second crystal, I should say. Make sure to summon your Thrall as well. And, you know, if you're here farming, or whether you're a main or an iron, I mean, nobody wants to die in here, right? So, even though it's unideal sometimes to brew, go ahead and brew if you think you're even at the risk of planking, which is exactly what I did right there. Let's go ahead and dump these claw specs. Pretty big claw specs there, and we'll swap back into our range here. We are hitting a fair amount of zeros here with the Bofa, unfortunately, but like I said, it's already much better these days than it was years ago. Okay, so we're probably going to get to a teleport here, unfortunately. Now with a Fortic weapon, not missing any hits at Vasa is very simple while still dodging the rocks. You can kind of just click the boss, run a tile, click the boss, run a tile. Do that repeatedly and you'll constantly hit on cooldown while dodging the rocks. So unfortunately we don't quite finish it right there. Now we didn't get teleported yet actually, but we will right here. As we noodle a few hits there, unfortunate. So after we get teleported, we brew up. Brew up a couple of times just to really play it safe. And a one teleport Vasa really is not too bad, especially since we messed up the initial Vasa teleport skip. That was honestly pretty good for what our gear is right here, and the mistakes that we did make. Okay, moving on. Range gear still equipped. We picked up 2 brews off the ground. You can even pick up that Twisted if you have the inventory space to do so. We're going to equip our salve. Again, make sure you pray against the scavenger beast and CMs. They do hurt quite a bit. And you also want to heal up as much as you can in between the rooms, but I did not do that there. Make sure to summon your Thrall early in the rooms. For this first Mystic, we're going to look to drag it over here so that we can corner save spot it. Sometimes when you do a lot of damage, you're going to finish this off before it even gets here, but if it does, this is where you stand, and that's where you want the Skeletal Mystic to be dragged to. And from here, it's nice and chill. You do want to continue protecting magic though, because during this, what's happening is they're trying to melee us, but occasionally they still will throw a mage attack. So just because you have it corner safe spotted, it's not a true safe spot, because like that can happen. First Mystic down. In a solo, there's always 3. So we're going to move on through the room as we try to keep our damage up. Now, these 2 Mystics, it can be kind of random where specifically they are in the room. But again, you want to corner safe spot these guys. So there we go. And we did resummon our Thrall, otherwise our Thrall that we spawned in the beginning of the room is going to take its sweet time going around the little maze here. And you're going to miss out on a lot of damage, so go ahead and just resummon the Thrall. Second Mystic down. So right now we're 28.5 minutes in, and this raid, for one thing, we're using gear we're not accustomed to. Secondly, it's been a long while since I did any raiding, much less a solo CM specifically, so all things considered, we're pacing quite well. Okay, heading into the Muttadile room here. We are going to be chopping, so there's a bronze axe located right here. We're going to want to swap into some tankier gear, actually, because, again, we're chopping, so... Once again, overload expiring during this moment is unideal, so what we're going to do, even though it's not optimal, but in the name of not planking, we're just going to chug some brews real quick. But what you really want to do here is every time you get a woodcutting EXP drop, you brew, you click the boss, and then back on the tree, and you'll be able to keep yourself in the chopping cycle. Sometimes it's going to range you, even though it's a melee range, and that's just honestly quite unfortunate. Okay, now we're going to swap into our melee gear here. I do believe the Bogfa is actually still the best damage, but melee gear is tankier, and the Baby Dow is just a short fight anyways. We do, however, want to make sure we step under. Everything in this raid attacks on a 4-tick cycle, and when you're using something like a Fang that's a 5-tick cycle, you do want to attack and step under for at least a tick, just so you trade hits equally. There we go. Swap into our range here. And then here with the Muttadile, you never want to take any risks either, because the Muttadile can hit extremely hard. So just brew, even when it's like not optimal on your overloads 15s. Obviously, try to do so as best as you can, but don't greed your brews. Again, we prepped a ton of brews, and we also took a whole ton of brews from the ground throughout the raid, so we really have plenty of supplies. As I said, this is not the best of runs, but if you're curious whether or not you can make it to the Grandmaster time or even the Master time, which is a little more forgiving at 45 minutes, I do have 2 videos out on the channel where they are mega rare list runs where I do meet those combat achievement requirements. So if you're interested, do check that out. But this one, I kind of just want to get back into the flow of things and test out the new Sang staff, and also just get reaccustomed to the raid and do a little bit of a walkthrough and talk out, my thought process running through the raid. So we're heading into Ulm now. We have our melee gear equipped, and first and foremost, we're going to go ahead and drop a brew and restore on the ground, because we're going to pick that up in a second here. We can deposit most things, and you know what? We're actually going to deposit all, because we personally want our mage gear at the top. So there we go. And then we're going to take out our Dragon Hunter crossbow. We're actually going to drop some switches, so we're not going to bring the helmet. Now, something I have made a mistake over the course of my many grinds is I bring my Fang in instead of my lance. So right away, we want to make sure to deposit our Fang. Make sure we have our light bearer and rune pouch. We'll take the surge potion if we have space. I don't know if I'm bringing that in just yet. We want at least 2 restores, and we're not going to bring the surge potion. So we're just going to go ahead. Well, we don't need to use it, but I'm going to bin the surge potion. That's something I use in my max setups, but I guess not here. So the ratio here is 5 brews to restore, something I'm very comfortable with. Again, if you need more brews or more revits or whatever the case may be, you can probably drop your oath plate legs. Probably the Aram's hood is not that needed. There's things that you can drop, or like the twisted buckler, you can just only use the Dragon Hunter crossbow, but we're good to go. Let's head it. You can be very flexible here, but there's only a couple of very important things that you want to bring in for sure. Our hammer does land, fantastic. Let's get our thrall going. And instinctively, I went to the back tiles there for the 5 or the 8-1 method and the 12-0 method for the 5-tick weapons, but we have a Sanguinesti staff here. It's a 4-tick, so actually much simpler to do this. All we have to do is run back and forth like this. Currently very comfortably sitting at 99 health, and for good measure, our Sang is occasionally proccing to heal us, which is not even needed, but I do believe one of the changes to the Sang staff was that when it does do that healing proc now, it actually increases your actual damage output as well, so that's pretty cool. Now, before I started this raid, I actually did not think to check what the charges were in the Sang staff, so we'll be okay, right? Mage Hand is almost down already. Possibly one more hit here. Yeah, there we go. And then we're going to transition into our melee gear here. And use melee thrall as well. We're currently not in cycle, so we'll look to fix that. Now, the beauty of having a light bear switch here is that we did land the one hammer, but if we didn't, we could just as easily land another one right now, as we're back to 100% spec, as we camp the light bear during the mage phase. And we're going to do that for every single phase. During mage, we're going to camp the light bear. Now, optionally, you can also just send a second hammer right now to begin with anyways, but personally, since I didn't do that in the beginning, I'm just going to go ahead and stay in cycle here with my 4-tick Dragon Hunter Lance. Besides, you know, we did hit our hammer, and we are hitting quite well right now, so I say that as I proceed to hit 2 zeros, but that is P1 down. And we didn't even use any of our supplies. That was by no means a quick phase or anything to 236, but it was pretty clean. And you know what? Having these Sanguinesti staff here, I mean, we're not going to take damage during the mage phase if we're doing it correctly, but we also are going to heal back up. Something that we're also paying attention to is that our overload is going to expire in 1.5 minutes. So while we do want to stay healthy and not risk planking, we're also not going to heal all the way up. So a couple of factors involved there, you know, between our Sanguinesti staff, Mage Hand being 0 damage if we execute it correctly, as well as our overload timer. Which is more than likely going to expire midway through perhaps the Mage Hand, or even when we transition into the melee. Something we're also paying attention to is our prayer. Now, we're actually sitting quite low on prayer right now, and this is on purpose. Although less significant right here, as genuinely we're not going to get hit, right? Even if you do the 3 of Mage Hand strategy perfectly, sometimes you're just going to get unlucky, and you saw that we did take a hit right there, but we were also prepared for it. That's just when you happen to hit a 0 as well as your thrall, and so the head doesn't turn properly. Bit unfortunate, but something just to be mindful of. At least you'll see when the attack is coming. That's kind of the main thing with all these strategies involved at Ohm, right? Like, you can expect when to take damage. The strategies aren't going to be damageless, although there are damageless methods, but they're very efficient DPS-wise, so you're not going to want to do that. We did have to 3-1 right there to get ourselves back into cycle. I think we should be in cycle. Yes, we are. Our enhance expired as well. Always want to make sure the enhance is going, as well as the overload, obviously. Now, acid does come out here, and what most people will do is they'll actually just fall out of cycle and try to just walk out the acid, right? Prevent damage from the acid. But we're going to try and stay in cycle here, and, you know, it wasn't perfect. Our acid walking was not perfect, but honestly, we stayed in cycle, we were able to keep our damage up, And the poison damage we did take was honestly, you know, not very relevant. The 218 P2 there, so a little bit quicker. And heal back up in between phases. Also, we have 4 minutes on our overload. Alright, we're going to send this hammer on P3, and we're going to proceed as normal, doing the mage hand first, and that's because this will allow us to get our spec energy back while we camp the light bearer. But we are going to be finishing the melee hand first before the mage hand. It's ever more important, like, or even more so important now because our hammer did miss, so we're kind of buying time for us to potentially land a second hammer. And with our Sanguine Nessie staff, we're going to heal straight back up. So if you don't have a Tumican Shadow, the Eye of Ayak is probably the next best thing. And even for Ironman, that is probably very obtainable. Do Momoka. You don't have to do very deep delves to get an Eye of Ayak. But in terms of learning solo CMs and the cycle, I do believe just using a Fortic weapon is much more easy to initially learn and understand. So unfortunately, we just swapped back to our Altor ring just a tad too early. We also did a ton of damage to the mage hand, so it didn't actually give us that much time for our spec to regen. It is coming up right about now, and it is debatable whether or not you want to fall out a cycle to rehammer, and it especially feels bad when your hammer misses anyway, so looks like we're going to be doing P3 with no defense reductions, but I mean, it's already half health, so not too bad. Again, P3 Ohm, going back to what I said at Vanguard, it's very important to understand your melee and max hits, which I don't actually know what they are, but, you know, we know the rough ballpark, so I think we'll be fine. One more hit here. I'm going to swap into our mage gear here. And as we work on finishing this mage hand, I'm actually going to go ahead and summon my range thrall now for the head phase. There we go. Swap into our range gear. And we're going to be using a 4-to-1 method here with the Dragon Hunter crossbow with ruby bolts. When you do get your hands on a twisted bow, this is going to be the same exact method that you're going to be doing. As you get more experience with this method as well, you can then start to dodge the falling crystals as well. But I do imagine when you're first learning this method, most people are just going to stick to one singular row. We only got the one ruby, but in general, our DPS has been pretty good, I think. So, in terms of my gear switches, I did drop the Crystal Helm for Ulm, and that's because we're using the Dragon Hunter crossbow anyways, that Crystal Helmet is less important. Just a couple more hits here, or just the one big hit, and that is the raid completed at 4313, 62.7k points. We get some uncut diamonds and gold ore. And I do want to stress, that was not the cleanest raid by any stretch of the imagination. As I'm standing here right now, I just realized I have my occult on and not my necklace of rupture. I don't know if that was the entire head phase, but that is all the more evidence that this was Not the cleanest raid by far, but we still made it to master time. And with a little bit more practice and comfortability in your specific setup, you're going to easily be able to smash the Grandmaster time. I know it seems far-fetched from this 43 minutes and 13 seconds, but the Grandmaster time is 38 minutes and 30 seconds, and there's easily a lot of time you can shave off.